What's up, everybody? Welcome to Take No Offense, a couple of old friends who grew up together in central Pennsylvania. Now we live on opposite sides of the country, so this is our chance to get together weekly to discuss whatever interests us in the fields of politics, sports, movies, and TV. I'm Eric Messersmith in the Los Angeles area. Brian Johnson is in suburban Washington, D.C., where yesterday we had the 47th President of the United States inaugurated, the peaceful transfer of power. Brian Johnson, what is up, buddy?
If fear is your business, business is booming, buddy. People are just freaking out. So if I may, just real quick, I'm going to read some headlines. This is CNN open right now. Trump defends pardoning people who assaulted police officers on January 6th. One, Trump says ICE can arrest people at churches and schools. And then there's a big picture of Vladimir Putin. Trump makes unusually critical remarks about Putin. And then there's one that just says Musk is a Nazi. And I may have made that last one up. But I'm telling you, man.
Wow.
Like, I know it's unbelievable. Like, has to be seriously a boon for CNN, right? And
well, I don't know. Their ratings weren't very good for Inauguration Day. I mean, I fear that CNN, I say fear not because I love CNN, but I'm saying from their point of view, they may be too far gone. And what I mean by that is their audience may be too small, which is not all their fault. I mean, that's the general trend of all of cable. It's one of the reasons ESPN is a much, much, much less valuable asset than it used to be when it was a cash cow 15 years ago, because people are cutting the cord. And now we have this media where we've devolved into 5,000 different outlets, which there is some positive to that.
Don't you think the desperation, though, is going to bring this out in organizations like that? Because they need the money. They need the viewers. So, like, let's go all in as a business plan.
I don't know. I feel like the people who love Trump are already have moved on from places like CNN to other outlets. And I feel like the people who don't like Trump are so disillusioned right now that they're not even in the game, a lot of them right now. Like MSNBC's ratings after the election fell off a cliff. That wasn't because they were doing anything different. It was because their audience was dispirited, sitting in a dark room.
But isn't it usually when the opposite is in power, like it's better for the other side? Like when Barack Obama was in office, that was great for Fox News.
Yeah, I think it depends on how much time has passed and what is happening. I think right away there's initial euphoria for the side that won, and there's always a bounce in the polling. If you look at recent presidents, they're usually the most popular they are in the first 6 months of their presidency, which makes sense. People like winners. There's an excitement. There's a hope. Even if you don't like even Trump, I didn't obviously vote for Trump. Still hope that he does.
No, but I meant as a business, though.
Right.
Like as a business, like Hannity, O'Reilly, those guys were at their peak in terms of popularity and viewership when Barack Obama was in office.
Yeah. I think
before all the assaults and whatnot.
Once you have, and it's already started, things start happening and opposition starts building to them. Because remember, the Tea Party didn't form the day Barack Obama was sworn in.
Right.
It was a buildup, and then it was huge. And I think that's what's going to happen with Trump. The opposition to him is scattered, depressed, disillusioned, and they will quickly regroup, in part because he will do things and already has done things that will galvanize them. We're recording this on Tuesday night, so it's been about a day and a half. It's funny because after the election, you and I talked about this. One of the things about Trump is that he distracts you with rhetoric, with social media posts, some of which might be serious, some of which aren't, some of which he may believe, some of which he might not. And so if you go chasing every rabbit, in fact, if you watch Saturday Night Live this week, by the way, shout out to Dave Chappelle. He did a great opening monologue. But the cold open was essentially a play on that, with MSNBC being distracted by every little thing he did. And look, part of what he does is that kind of shock and awe and you saw that with all the official actions he's done in the first day and a half. So I've always said with Trump, let's wait and see what he actually does before we get too enthusiastic if you like him, or too upset if you don't. Well, okay, we have a day and a half. I'm not going to make I'm not
It's
going to
been
give
a busy day and a half, buddy.
I'm not going to give a definitive, like, here's my firm take on the Trump
That was a
presidency.
stack of paperwork on his desk.
It was a lot.
They printed that before he was sworn in.
It was a lot of
I think they had it ready to go.
Yeah, I think all you could do with Trump is read the signs at this point because it's so early. And to me, there were two arguments, and we talked about it. There were the people who said he doesn't really mean it. And I'm simplifying the argument. And what they meant by that was he's right on the broad strokes of how he sees things, but he's not actually going to do across the board tariffs. He's not actually going to pull us out of the NATO. He's not actually going to deport people who have been here for a very long time. It's bluster. It's a negotiating tactic. And I think we don't know the answer to those. It's too early. But here's one now we officially do know the answer to. Other people around him, he really didn't say this, but other people around him, including J.D. Vance a week ago in a national TV interview said, I'm paraphrasing, we will not be pardoning the violent J6 protesters who injured police officers. We saw yesterday Trump mass pardoned essentially everyone already convicted or pled guilty or on trial, awaiting trial.
That's a real lack of communication between the number two and the number one.
But Vance was not the only one who said that, by the way. That wasn't like Vance going out to try to fool us. That was the line of the high-profile Trump supporters, and I think probably most people who voted for him probably thought that he'd do that. And by the way, had he done that, I wouldn't have had a huge problem if he would have pardoned people who didn't commit violent crimes that day, who didn't attack police officers.
That weren't Proud Boys.
I wouldn't do that. I think
keepers.
Right. But look, there were a wide range of people committing offenses, ranging from being in the wrong place at the wrong time to breaking a window to beating the hell out of police officers to seditious freaking conspiracy. And he essentially wiped away all of that. So to the people who say, well, he doesn't really mean it. And look, what I said all along, and I remember saying this during the campaign, because people said we survived 4 years with him. And in some ways, things were good up until COVID, which was true. Economically, we were doing pretty well. But what I always said was, yes, that's true, but it's different now. And the reasons it's different is because he's different. He's learned. He's not going to make the same mistakes again, which for him, mistakes meant trying to placate, people he disagreed with and trying to be somewhat reasonable. He's going to surround himself with sycophants and yes man and people who owe their political life to him, who would have no political life, who would not have these jobs in any other administration. See Robert F. Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth. There's a long list. And now the Republican Party is his. And he doesn't, and by the way, he never has to face voters again. That to me was a perfect storm for why will this be different? Why could this be so much worse than the first time? And again, I want to be clear. I'm not freaking out after a day and a half.
You sound like you're freaking out a little bit. I got to be honest with you.
The J6 was an early test. I mean, among the people released, this is from, you mentioned CNN. This is from CNN.com. Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the far-right Proud Boys, who was convicted of seditious conspiracy and sentenced to 22 years in prison. Because remember, for a while with January 6th, that was the critique was, well, these people who were arrested, they were arrested for individual acts that day. They just kind of showed up. There was no plan. Well, it turned out several members of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys actually did have a plan. They had a plan to try to stop the peaceful transfer of power and essentially overthrow the government, and they were convicted of seditious conspiracy, and now they're free. Among the other people released, Devlin Thompson, what did he do? He had a police officer with a metal baton. Robert Palmer, a Florida man who attacked police with a fire extinguisher, a wooden plank, and a pole. One officer, Sicknick, died the next day. Now, he died from causes that weren't necessarily related to he had a health issue, but certainly fighting for 10 hours against people trying to beat the hell out of you. I don't think it's unreasonable. And in fact, the coroner his family hired said that played a role in his death. Several other officers committed suicide within months of that. Now, again, maybe that had nothing to do with what happened that day. Mental illness is a complicated thing. I'm not saying it did, but I'm saying it's possible. People died on the grounds that day from heart attacks, drug overdose, and of course, a woman was killed. So for Trump, and Trump said today, I'm the most pro law enforcement president that's ever been in the Oval Office. After pardoning all of these people who beat and assaulted law enforcement officers on that day. I don't know how you defend that. I've seen some people try. The only real defense I've seen today is, well, the BLM riots were bad, and a lot of those people didn't go to prison. So, and I agree, the BLM riots were bad. And I agree that some of the people who did bad things during those riots should have been prosecuted more forcefully than they were. But that is the ultimate, not only two wrongs make a right, don't make a right argument, right? Like, even if you agree with that argument about BLM, that is no justification for this. And also, the difference is, as bad as BLM was at times, and it was bad, and I think those people should have been prosecuted even more aggressively than they were. We were too lax during the summer of 2020, but that was not at the citadel of our democracy on the day that power was supposed to be transferred in order to stop that transfer based on a lie that the election was stolen.
You do seem a little rattled, my friend. I got to be honest with you. Like, you say that you're not. I've known you for a long time, and dude, in terms of like performance, you're wonderful. But this is not an act. You seem genuinely upset. Can we talk about your emotional state?
Well, I want to be clear. I'm upset at Biden too. This is another justification you hear. Well, Biden on his way out pardoned his family members and other preemptive pardons.
Yeah, whataboutism.
That was bad. I don't think Biden was right to do that. I think it sets a terrible precedent. And but again, it's not the whataboutism is no justification. Also, those people that he pardoned, there's no credible allegation that they committed any crime. The members of his family, the members of the J6 committee, the Dr. Anthony Fauci, Mark Milley, there's no credible charge right now that could be thrown against them. Biden thought, with some justification, that a Trump-run Justice Department might make it up. I mean, Trump has said Milley should go to prison. He said that about other people as well. So, I don't think Biden did the right thing with that. I think it sets a terrible precedent to preemptively pardon people who didn't actually do anything wrong just because you're afraid they might be prosecuted, especially when it's members of your own family. Talk about nepotism. So I got a lot of problems with the way Joe Biden handled the last year plus of his presidency. A lot of problems. And I think history will judge him harshly for that. But that in no way justifies this.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. So I'm going to transition to where I find some of the dark comedy and all of this separation from reality.
Yes,
today,
please give me something to laugh about.
Well, I think you'll enjoy this because I didn't think this would catch on so fast, but I met a saleswoman from I won't say what company today. She was flown in from South Carolina to sell me her wares, and she called it the Gulf of America, which took me aback.
Wait. When you said sell you her wares, was she a lady of the evening?
No, she was selling, technology equipment for, security purposes. And she was very nice. And she seemed
Thank you for clarifying.
She seemed like a normal human being until out of nowhere, I don't know where this came from, she said the Gulf of America.
Yeah.
And I was just so confused. I missed like the next 5 minutes of the meeting because I was distracted.
Yeah. Look, that is another thing that Trump does that I don't care that much about. It's been called the Gulf of Mexico for 400 years. So I think it's weird to call it the Gulf of America, but it doesn't matter as much as the J6 pardon. In fact, a lot of the executive orders he signed yesterday were either things that don't matter at all, things that are just the normal we have now in our country because we don't have a functioning legislature for the most part. We have government by partially executive order. So one president comes in and signs them, and then the next president, if it's a different party, comes in and reverse. In fact, I think Trump reversed 78 Biden executive orders in the first couple of days. So that's kind of where we're at. And that's all fine, by the way. I may not agree with every one of them, but that's the normal political shit. I'm not here to criticize that. What I am here to criticize is the J6 one. That's what I'm saying with Trump. You have to draw the distinction between what is kind of the normal political stuff that any Republican president would do, the normal back and forth, and also some of the stuff that I actually like that Trump will do. Because that's the thing. I'm not some hardcore leftist. I'm going to like some of the things Trump does, most likely. Cracking down on illegal immigration. I don't agree exactly with the way he's going about it. I would do it a little bit differently in terms of asylum and canceling the appointments. But I generally think that is right. I generally think we do need to be much tougher on border security at the southern border and on enforcement. I'm willing to go down the road with getting tough on China. I think across the board tariffs are a terrible idea, but getting tougher on China with certain tariffs, they have been. So there are things with Trump that I am going to like. But I think we can't let this kind of stuff just slide as, oh, well, you know. And then the other thing I heard today was, well, he said this during the campaign. This is what people voted for. People didn't vote for this. People voted because of immigration, because prices were high. And first of all, 49.9% of the people voted for Trump, which means more than half the people that voted for somebody else. So that's the first thing. The second thing, even that 49.9% that voted for Trump, they weren't voting, most of them, because they wanted to see someone who beat officers with a pick shovel and a flagpole. They wanted to see that person get out of prison. I do not believe the vast majority of people who voted.
It seems unlikely if you're applying logic, but dude, this is what I'm telling you. Logic is gone. You mean you cared more about January 6th pardons than you did Mount McKinley not being Mount McKinley and being Denali, which, by the way, I have to admit something, which is, this is a little embarrassing. I still thought it was Mount McKinley. Like, how long has it been Denali?
Changed it? I honestly don't know that. I do not know the answer to that.
Lisa Murkowski, who, by the way, is a wonderful woman and a great senator. Yeah, Murkowski. What did I say?
I love her. She's my favorite. She's one of my favorite Republicans right now.
She is like all up in arms about this. Meanwhile, to your point, polls, fire extinguisher beatings, like that's the greatest trick. But the best trick was, do you think Elon Musk did a half-hearted Nazi salute just to rile everybody up? Because, dude, I think it was an awkward motion. I don't think he was doing a Nazi salute because he's a weird dude. You and I have talked about this before. I don't think he can have real human interaction. Like, because, people that are sometimes super intelligent, they lack a general way of being.
Well, Musk has said he has autism. I mean, he has said that like my son has autism. And you can see that Musk is socially awkward, which is one of the symptoms that certainly goes with that. And I don't think he meant to do the Nazi symbol.
I don't think there is a correlation between autism and Nazism. I think that's a bridge too far.
That is not accurate. But
dude, did you see how riled up people were? Yeah, like my face,
and that's what I'm talking about.
Full of it. And
I'm like,
talking
about this is what I'm talking about with the Democrats. Keep your eye on the ball. Don't jump at Musk giving a weird signal with this. This is why I can't associate myself with the Democrats. As much as Trump infuriates me sometimes, it makes me sad. I can't get totally on board with the Democrats, and I would never consider myself a Democrat, in part because of stuff like that, and in part because of what Biden did. What Biden did at the end of his presidency was more than just those actions. It was a continuation of Democrats' response to Trump, which is essentially, well, he's breaking the norms and he's doing it bad, right? So therefore, now I'm justified in continuing that spiral of norm breaking because it's everybody for themselves and everybody should just take what they can get and do what they have to do. And I don't agree with that. And Democrats didn't used to be like that at the beginning. Like, that's one of the reasons Biden won in 2020, because he wasn't like that. But sadly, because of time and because of his old age. And by the way, one more thing about Biden. You want to protect your family from Trump, okay, and his potentially vindictive Justice Department. You know what you could have done? Not run for re-election when you were about to be 82 years old and you had clearly mentally deteriorated, and give your party a chance to nominate somebody who could have won. That's what you could have done, Joe Biden. And I'm telling you, he had a nice first 2-3 years. He really did. But he screwed it up bad. He shat the bed in that last year and a half. And that was the biggest thing, man. He maybe literally, but figuratively. You want to protect your family so bad, then do the right thing and don't run for president again when you clearly are not able to handle the job, let alone a campaign to win the job.
Dude,
I'm fired up tonight. I'm
I
sorry.
know. I'm trying to calm you down. Like, we could talk about like TikTok getting an extension of 75 days, something that
Oh, yeah.
really matters, Eric. Instead, you want to talk about, I don't know, innocent people who lost their lives and the hostile takeover of our democracy. But maybe I'm just not as focused as I should be. Maybe I
Let me
need to.
ask let me ask you a question on a slightly different subject.
All
So
right.
we're watching the inauguration.
Mhm.
Elon Musk is there, which makes sense. He was a big Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
the CEO of Alphabet, which owns Google and YouTube,
Mhm.
where you were probably watching this right now. You've got the man who runs TikTok, all there,
Yes.
right? In not just there, not like in the back, in a prominent position behind Trump. All
Yeah.
Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, all clearly courting favor. What do these people have in common? Well, obviously they're wealthy, right? And they run powerful companies, but even more so, they control the modern source of information in social media. And wisely, they know that Trump is very susceptible to flattery. And so they are doing what they probably should do for their shareholders, which is try to ingratiate themselves. Remember, the federal government has antitrust suits against Google, against Apple, rightfully so, I would say. These companies gotten too powerful.
Oh,
Does that make, is that, it makes me very uncomfortable to see that. I'll be honest with you, because I'm thinking, what is going to happen now with the regulation of these companies in this administration? Like, I don't want to see my government be so buddy buddy with these captains of industry, particularly if they're doing things that like monopolistic practices that they shouldn't be doing, particularly also when they control our information. I don't know. Does it trouble you at all?
well, so here's the thing. The one argument is to say that this has always been the case, going back to like the barons with newspapers, etc. Like, there was a lot of influence and power there, and it certainly played a huge role in politics and who was elected. I think that's a poor argument. Just because something has always existed in the shadows doesn't mean it should continue exist. And the real problem is that recognizing it exists, now it's overt. There's basically a giant sign that says, "We are for sale, and this is a quid pro quo relationship. You give me stuff, and I'll give you stuff." And I think your problem with it, like many people's problem with it, is that we're not even trying to hide it anymore. Like, it's just out in the open. This is the college running back before NIL driving a Lambo. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, we're just going to throw this in everyone's face. Like, yeah, we're doing this and it's happening. Does it make me comfortable? Obviously not. I think it's terrible. But where is the people that are like, that are out there to say, like, this is wrong? Like, when Trump was in office the first time, the GAO put out numerous reports and well funded, well studied, well documented instances of Trump basically just not separating himself from businesses, benefiting from these things financially. But nothing happened because there's no backbone, be it in the Republican Party, and there's not enough people on the Democratic side to communicate this in a very real way of how this is going to impact our lives moving forward, not tomorrow, not for the next election, but seriously, and I don't want to overstate it, we're talking about decades of impact that this presidency is going to have if this is allowed to exist in this way. And my fear is that it will be. So I don't have good news for you, buddy. I was trying to calm you down a minute ago, but I think you and I are clearly on the same page here. I think it's not good. I will note that I have noticed a lot more pornography on my Facebook feed. And dude, I'm not, this is, look, stop.
Well, now why could that be? Do you think
I'm
maybe the
telling you,
algorithm knows your interests?
I'm telling you that I have done nothing that would make this algorithm so. But today I was scrolling Facebook and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, so it's happening. It's happening. What happened?
That's hilarious. No, I was just sorry. I had to adjust my
Oh,
microphone there.
you're good, dude. But yeah,
I
no,
think
but
you made a
haven't.
great point
Yeah, go
about
ahead.
it being out in the open now.
Yeah.
And also, it even recently, it's not always this way because a lot of these same people either were kind of neutral or were actively hostile to Trump in his first term. So that's the big difference with
JD
these
Vance
power
was.
brokers
Now he's
now.
vice president.
Right. Many others as well. It's not just them. And again, I'm not, if you see Facebook, for instance, just to use that as an example, start to distort their algorithm in verifiable ways that benefit Donald Trump in order to get something from the government. Now and you see maybe like their case drop for antitrust. Now we're in another ballgame, right? I'm not saying we're to that level yet, but you could see us getting to that level.
Oh
And
no, it's gonna happen.
that's the scary thing. You know what, though? I will say the silver lining for the Democrats is Ezra Klein, columnist for New York Times, I think was the one who pointed this out on Next the other day. He said the reason that Trump's grift is so outrageous is because it's in the open. And the reason it's in the open is because he doesn't think it's wrong. That, in a way, gives an opening now for the Democrats because it's right there for all of us to see. And so I feel like, look, these big tech companies, I talked about their monopolistic tendencies, how they buy out competition, how they crush anyone who tries to challenge them, how they operate as essentially monopolies in their various spheres. That's one part of it. The second part, which is even worse, is what social media has done to all of us in a negative way, but particularly to young people. I mean, the harms of social media, have you seen the studies that have come out, are akin to harms of something like tobacco, right? It's not the same thing. It's not a physical thing. It's more on the mental side. But what I'm saying is a product that is produced and in some degree marketed to kids that has a huge negative impact on them, in this case, their mental health. That is going to be dealt with and going to be reckoned with. And you're already starting to see this. And so there is an opening in 2028 for a Democrat to come along and run not just against what, let's say, the potential corruption of the Trump administration. We'll see what happens. But also this new oligarchy that I think Biden, people, look, I give Biden a lot of shit for a lot of things, but I think he was right in that speech that this is one thing we have to watch out for. This new oligarchy, this tech-centered control. And you could see, I think, a smart Democrat, and hell, even maybe a Republican could run against this someday, who could run against these tech companies and say, we are going to use, these companies have been running businesses that have been essentially unregulated for 30 years, making a ton of money. And what have they given us? What have they wrought, right? Yes, some economic development, jobs, I grant you that. Nice to stay in touch with your high school friends, right? But there's a huge downside too. And the idea that they have not been regulated for the most part at all, there's a massive opening there. And that's what I say with Trump, focusing on the little things. Elon Musk putting his arm in the wrong position when he was clearly just excited. There's so much legitimate stuff. It's going to come. Some of it already has, but a lot more of it is going to happen. Like, for instance, if he does these tariffs, he's saying he's going to do 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico on February 1st. Just if he does those, just wait until prices start to rise for things people buy and people start to realize, oh, hey, wait a minute. His policies aren't actually driving my prices down. Instead, they're making them higher. If you wait, if you're smart and if you're the Democrats and you don't just jump on every little shiny thing because, oh, I hate the orange man, right? You will have an opening. You got to just sit back and let it come to you because it's about to come based on what we've seen for the first day and a half. I always use the caveat that with Trump, you never know. He could turn it around and be an amazing president, right? I mean, maybe.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Well, you just made me think. I mean, this happened under George W. Bush, too. We were so focused on him not being able to speak and the Iraq war and shoes having been thrown at his head that we missed the part where he passed tort reform. And I mentioned tort reform because that's what made businesses people. That's a real thing that exists. Get on your Google machine and look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. But basically what happened, it only made them as liable as a person could be. My point being is that these businesses that we're describing, they're clearly not people. They are monsters. They are machines, and the only thing that they eat is money. They have no soul. They have no way of being. And it's not like, here's the genuine thing. I'm not blaming the people for this. It's
No,
the
I agree.
system that they're in. Your job, that CEO who got shot and died, his job was to make shareholders money and make his company money. He
Yeah.
was doing his job. Having a moral compass and having a moral base is not the responsibility of a multi-billion-dollar international company. That cannot be. It doesn't
Yes.
exist. So the purpose of government is to rein these things in. It's why we
Right.
have a FTC. It's why we have regulatory agencies. And the one thing that we haven't talked about, and I don't know if it was on your radar tonight, but is with banks. Banks are thrilled. They went to Trump after he rolled back some of the current Biden regulations and said, we need more.
Yeah.
They want the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Again, if you don't know what that is, kids, go ahead and look it up. It's a very important thing that was created after the housing crisis in 2008, which helps
Yes.
like payday loan centers and them robbing people and making sure that banks take some responsibility and have accountability for things that they do, because we know the SEC is toothless. Like, we gave up on that a million years ago. The CFPB it's a bureau. It's like the FBI. They have a law enforcement role. Like, what they do is so important, and it is going to be gutted under Trump. It barely survived the first Trump presidency. I don't know if it'll survive a second term.
Yeah, you're very well could be right on that. And getting back real quick to your point about like the tech people, like you could say Zuckerberg's actions over the last few weeks are because he's like a shameless bootlicker who will do anything and has no moral compass, or you could say that he is doing something that is acting in the best interest of the
Yes, as a
shareholders.
financial,
And
he
by the
has
way,
to. He has to. That's his
right,
job.
both of those things could be true. And I think both probably are true. I don't think Zuckerberg's a bad guy. I really
I don't
don't.
think so either.
I think he created something and built something and became a leader in an industry that we have found out over time has pretty corrosive effects in society. And he didn't know that at the time, and nobody did. And I think he's doing what he has to do right now. And that's where your point comes in. We can't leave it to the robber barons.
No.
We can't leave it to Bezos and Musk and Zuckerberg. We have to have the government come in. To the Biden administration's credit, they were prosecuting antitrust lawsuits against some of these companies. I hope those continues. I hope Congress finally gets off its ass and passes legislation. But I'll say this, having those guys that close to Trump, to me, makes it less likely that any kind of real legislation will be put forward. And that's a bad thing. But as I said, it gives an opening for a smart Democrat in 2028 to make this a centerpiece of their campaign.
Just to land a plane on it, I'm realistic, right? Like, we know that these powerful people have had influence for a very long time. That's why I made the point about newspapers 100 years ago. But you know what's funny about this, man, is I kind of liked when it was like in back rooms with cigars and scotch. You know, there was something almost romantic about those deals being done. Like, when it's in your face on television, it feels insulting.
Well, I think it just shows you, this week shows you that Trump feels like he can do anything. We didn't even talk about this yet. And this goes to what we're saying. The day, I think it was the day before the election, he launched a cryptocurrency backed by nothing. Not even like Bitcoin that has something. He launched his own.
He's done a couple, I think.
Instantly, it's worth billions of dollars. And it's essentially a way for people to pay him because they like him.
Yeah, well, he did this with NFTs. I apologize. It wasn't.
He did with NFTs.
It was NFTs.
But NFTs were small potatoes compared to this. This is worth right now the billions.
Yeah, today it'll be worth nothing.
Right, but for him, it's people can buy it, drive up the price, drive up his net worth.
Right, then he sells it all, and then it tanks, and then we're good.
Right, and the little guy loses the bag. Could you imagine if Joe Biden did something like that?
How can people not see this? Like, that's not Trump's fault.
And that's the thing. This wasn't something that was hidden, like where he was in the shadows. He announced this and promoted it, and most people kind of just were like, And especially his supporters, Whereas we know
They're going to get screwed
Joe
so
Biden
hard.
or a Democrat did anything like this, it would be all over the media, the conservative.
Did you see the
So
Trump sneakers though? Like the gold ones? I think I posted them.
But at least that was a real product.
It was. I mean, I kind of wanted them for the joke. You know what I'm saying? Like, absolutely. I just was like, I saw it and I laughed so hard when I saw them because there's a lot of comedy in those gold sneakers, dude.
Oh,
like, I could wear those all over the place. I mean, you could do the same thing with a MAGA hat, but it's not as fun as the gold shoes.
No, but it's just the grift, and the shamelessness is just insane. One other thing, this is all I got for tonight, I think. John Bolton. Bolton, in addition to having an outrageously funny mustache, he is known to be a foreign policy hawk. He's known to be someone who tangled with Trump when he was the national security advisor briefly during Trump's first term, and then someone who was an outspoken critic of Trump. Well, Iran has threatened to kill John Bolton. Okay. And today, Trump pulled Bolton's Secret Service detail out of nothing but spite. Joe Biden had given Bolton a Secret Service detail, even though Bolton had been critical of Biden as well. Bolton didn't love Biden's foreign policy. Not when I say Iran wants to kill Bolton, the reason we know that is because in 2022, an Iranian agent in the United States was actively recruiting people to assassinate John Bolton. So that's some pretty good
intelligence.
Yeah, that's not hyperbole.
That's some pretty solid information.
So when I say the Iranian government is trying to kill John Bolton,
you mean
literally trying to kill him. And Donald Trump, purely out of spite, took away his Secret Service detail. Which, look, if John Bolton, God forbid, is killed, that will be on Donald Trump for doing something.
Well,
like this. So,
I think John Bolton could probably dip into his own wallet if he had
some personal security.
I think I might give him a call when we're done with this meeting and see if I can help him out,
because he's going to need it. But if you are a U.S. government official and because of your role in the government, another government is trying to kill you, I think it's incumbent upon our government, and it usually is what happens, to provide you with protection. And
dude, I didn't know this until you just said that. This is insane. Today.
Yep. Look, this is where we're at. One more thing. I just saw this. And again, I just love the people who said, well, he's not really going to do these things. He's not, this is another thing I talked about. Taking people who are not political appointees, who are career civil servants, experts in various fields, who don't change with administration, and removing them, or in this case, reassigning them for political reasons. Several members of the Department of Justice who were career prosecutors were reassigned. And the reason you do that is because technically you can't fire them by law, because we have a merit-based system, as we should.
Yeah, it's like being assigned to Alaska.
Right. So the president can't just come in and put his cronies in every position who might be unqualified and replace qualified people. So they're reassigning them to try to get them to quit. One of the people they put in place, who is now the acting district attorney for the Southern District of Columbia, Ed Martin, is the acting U.S. attorney there. He was an organizer of the Stop the Steal movement, was involved in the financing of the January 6th rally on the Ellipse that occurred directly before the riot at the Capitol. He has also proposed other wild policies.
Is this Missouri or South Cackalack? Columbia.
Oh, this is DC.
Washington, the District of Columbia.
The District of Columbia. So this is the guy, Ed Martin, Stop the Steal guy. This is where we are. And then
I can't top that one. That's pretty impressive.
I do have one more for you.
Jesus, dude.
This one just broke a few hours ago. Trump pardoned Ross Ulbricht today. Are you familiar with Ross Ulbricht's work?
Tell me about Ross.
So Ross created a little website that ran between 2011 to 2013. It was called Silk Road. You could find it on the dark web. He sold drugs, guns, forged documents, stolen credit card information. He was arrested by the FBI in 2013.
I am unfortunately familiar with the Silk Road.
Yeah, so he was the guy he was the gentleman who did it, and he has now been freed from
prison. Not great.
No,
I mean,
this
I
is
am often able to summarize things eloquently, but I think the words "that's not great" really sums that one up.
look. I hate to say it, but it's going to be as bad as we thought it was. It may be worse. That's where we're trending. It, I hope I'm wrong. I always say I hope I'm wrong.
Dude, are you going to get, honest to God, are you just so, like, I do want to talk about your emotions about this because they do matter. Like, what you think is important. And, like, everyone, you know, has a voice and you can say what they think. But I am genuinely interested in how you feel. You asked me, I'm obviously not very, you know, hopeful for the next 4 years. But again, I'm just going off your voice, your way of being tonight. I take it you are not hopeful, but dude, you like this is like you seem, dare I say, offended.
Well, I am offended by some of the things, but I want to be clear. I have mixed emotions because, like I said before, on policy, I don't know what the percentage is, but there might be 25 or 30% of things I actually agree with Trump on. And so I'll be happy to see him do those things. And also, I do hold out hope. Like all hope is not lost by any means. We still have the Supreme Court, which, yes, it's conservative, but they just last week they voted to allow the special counsel's January 6th
Yeah.
report to come out. Like there's one of the big things we'll see is the birthright citizenship case. That's going to work its way through the courts. That was one of Trump's executive orders. So the Supreme Court is still there. Republicans of Congress, look at Matt Gaetz. They forced Trump to dump Matt Gaetz. There are still people like, Mitch McConnell, like Lisa Murkowski, you mentioned, like Susan Collins. There's a very, very narrow majority in the House. There's the outrage of the American public. Like, yes, Trump won. Yes, his numbers are better now than they've been. Still not that great at like 50%. But there is public opinion, which still can matter if he does unpopular things. And then there's the ultimate potential rejection, which is the 2026 midterms and the 2028 general election. So I am not doom and gloom like everything is over by any means. Like I'm very optimistic still that we will be okay. But the damage done along the way, again, if it's anything like we've seen in the first day and a half, the damage done along the way, I think, for our republic is not good. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. No. I don't think the signs are good. I really don't. But we're lucky to live in America. We've got a lot of checks and balances.
I would like to see the Democrats learn something from this. And I know you and I have talked about this before. Even as a Democrat, one of the things I really respect about Republicans is exactly this. They came in, they won, and guns are blazing, dude. Like they don't give a fuck about any of this stuff.
No,
they don't.
Trump doesn't. Clearly.
No, but like that's what I'm saying is like I hope that in the future, like something I don't know, but I'm mixed about that because I never want to be in that party that's like that a little bit. But dude, I want to win, and like sometimes like. I don't know. Like I said, I actually do. It's like the Baltimore Ravens as a Steeler fan. I don't like them, but I respect them. You know what I'm saying?
The Democrats need to learn the right lessons. And as I said at the beginning, the lesson is not trying to go tit for tat with Trump in some kind of like democracy death spiral. That is not the way to do it. And it's not to jump on every little thing. And it's not to overreact to every mean tweet or every outlandish remark or every perceived slight. Save your outrage for the things he actually does that have negative consequences. And there will be, they will happen. Just sit back and wait. It's already starting. And by the way, the thing that happens too is now you own it. Like it's easy to castigate what you don't like when you're not in power. But now there's no excuses. Trump has said prices will go down. They're not going to go down. We all know that. That people are going to see that. He said it end the war in Ukraine in day one. Day one past that war is still going on. There's example after example after example. People said he wouldn't pardon the worst offenders of J6. He's done that. So time will show you these things and will reveal these things. And if the Republicans struggle to govern, which their track record during the first Trump administration and recently in the House of Representatives would lead you to believe they're going to struggle to govern, Democrats will have the opening. When you have the opening, you have to be ready to seize it, though, with a message that's more than Trump bad. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be what I was saying earlier. Appeal to running against the excesses of big tech, the excesses of the oligarchy, what you said with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, how the gap between the rich and the poor has exploded so much over the last 40 years, and the protections that have been eroded and what has allowed that to happen. That is the angle that Democrats have to attack. And if they can focus on that positive message combined with potentially the excesses of the coming Trump years, there's going to be a huge opening for them to do very, very well in 2026 and 2028. We just, we got to get there.
My last one, because I know we're running extremely long, but there's a lot here, is will you be able to find the comedy in any of this? For example, the Anti-Defamation League. And again, not to be one of these things. I have a lot of friends at the ADL. There's a lot of anti-Semitism in the United States. It's very well documented. But them having to put out a statement because Democrats are so stupid that they're freaking out about Musk salute. And Musk responds, thanks, with a smiley face. Do you understand how insane it is? Again, dude, this is like Martin Luther King saying you're not racist. This is the ADL who's right. Basically telling everyone, guys, we have much bigger fish to fry here. What are you doing?
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of comedy there.
Look, I am not that serious person, as you know, so I find the humor in pretty much anything, even strange and inappropriate places. So I will definitely find the humor. I found a lot of humor yesterday, just in the tallness of Barron Trump. I saw John Fetterman walking in his shorts and hoodie. Elon Musk staring at the chest of Jeff Bezos's wife. That weird hat that Melania Trump had on, where I don't know how she could see out of it. The incredibly awkward air kiss that Trump and Melania had when he was about to be sworn in. I don't know if you saw it. It was like she looked like pained to have to get that close to his face. So yes, I definitely will find the humor. I'm already finding it. Brian, what I have found is if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah. I had to know, like I said, you were really, you had a lot here. And
a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. And I firmly agree. So I know we ran that extremely long, but I think that was worthwhile.